What the heck is proportionalism?
Well, it's basically using the idea that, well, if there's a good enough reason, you can do something bad.
Oh.
I mean, I think that's the simplest way to put it.
Yeah.
And when you say something's intrinsically evil, there's no proportionate reason to do something. I mean, and abortion is the classic example.
Yeah.
And that's why the church is opposed to, a lot of times the politicians say, well, at least in these cases, rape or incest or, and certainly as we've talked about real compassion.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We have compassion for those who have been violated, but the way that the child was conceived doesn't make them any less a child that's been conceived. And that's why abortion is a classic example of it's intrinsically evil. You can't ever say, well, for this good reason, we can go ahead and take the life of a child. It's insidious because once you go down that path, you're letting go of truth. You're letting go of the moral, the natural law, and it all becomes arbitrary.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we're seeing way too much of in the world, and even people in the church embracing an arbitrary idea of, well, in this, it really comes down to pretty much if you open that door and ignore the truth, then you can, just about any reason you come up with can be argued to be proportionately reason enough to do this evil thing, whatever that evil thing is. So it's, as Veritatis Splendor makes so clear, and that's why we need to keep revisiting that document.
Yeah.
Not because we think John Paul is great. We do.
Yeah.
But because it's the truth.
Yes.
He fought to proclaim that truth throughout his papacy. If the Vatican was asking for my recommendation, which I'm not holding my breath, but I would recommend that we review the church's treasury of teachings through the centuries. And instead of writing anything new, let's just revisit the vault of treasure that we have, documents written hundreds of years ago, or half a century ago, or 10 years ago. I mean, whenever it was written, as we've said just in our conversation this afternoon.
Yeah.
What's the truth? There's no shelf life. It doesn't age out.
Nope.
It doesn't expire. It doesn't become irrelevant.
That's right.
We need these truths that the church has sometimes fought for through the centuries. Beautiful documents. I'd recommend that we just republish a lot of the great encyclicals of popes through the ages, going back to councils 1,000 years ago.
Yes.
But if it was the truth, it's the truth today.
Yeah.
And I think we need to remember that. And Veritatis Splendor, it really mines a lot of that. And what St. John Paul II did was represent a lot of these truths that had been formulated through the ages. So we need to pay attention. We need to continue to catechize, and we need to let people know that when it's intrinsically evil, there's an ironclad closed door to doing it. That doesn't mean we condemn those who have done it, but we call them back from when you do something that's intrinsically evil, it's called sin, serious sin. We need to call people back from those sins and repent of the sin and turn to God for mercy. The mercy's always there, but we've got to repent. And repenting of doing anything that is intrinsically evil is is absolutely necessary. Talk about the medicinal approach. I mean, that's the medicine our souls need in order to be healed of our sinfulness and to share an everlasting life with God.
I love it. And, one of the points the Pope's comment is building what he called an adequate anthropology. It is interesting, Bishop Strickland, that he released this encyclical letter on the Feast of the Transfiguration, August 6th on the Roman calendar. The feast certainly underscores the message of the encyclical and to call to our complete transformation in Jesus Christ. Here's an interesting thought. He says, the encyclical letter affirms that what we choose helps determine who we become. When they believe they can justify as morally good deliberate choices of kinds of behavior contrary to the commandments of the divine natural law, these theories cannot claim to be grounded in Catholic moral teachings. Now, I'm just going to make my comment on that. I don't want to get you in trouble. But you see, that statement is so clear. I see things like in December when that letter came out about blessing same-sex couples. See, the Holy Father makes it very clear. These theories cannot be grounded in the Catholic moral tradition. So that's why bishops' conferences all around the world, especially in Africa, said, no, we can't do this. It's not consistent in what we believe. Now, this is hard for a layman who has no PhD in anything except in common sense. But common sense says we got to be faithful to Jesus. Your thoughts?
We have to reject anything that's intrinsically evil.
Yeah.
And the reality is we've got to, another way of saying it is, thankfully the church said, but too many are backing off on what the church said. You can't bless sin.
No.
You can't bless something that is sinful and evil.
Right.
And that's where the confusion is. And that's where we have to just keep speaking about the splendor of truth. And I love the title of that. Of course, it's the first two words of the encyclical, because it is splendid. It's not just a burden, and it's not, you're being tough and you're being mean and you're being backward and rigid and all these things that get thrown at people who simply believe in what the church teaches. Instead, it truly is splendid. It is beautiful. It is joyful. It is life-giving. It brings happiness even in this life. It doesn't bring the ultimate happiness of heaven. This world never will.
No.
But if we do our best to live this truth, and the saints modeled that. The saints were people that were very often rejected by the world, sometimes bearing illness throughout their lives. In the worldly measurements, they shouldn't have been happy people, but they were, because they knew this truth and they avoided anything that was evil. That's what we've got to teach people.